The topic for our discussion is the role of AI from conceptualization to product development. And first up on this amazing panel is a seasoned technical leader with over 20 years of experience across Google and Microsoft. He's built and scaled cloud services and communication platforms used by millions worldwide. He is, of course, the Vice President of Product Management, NetApp. Please put your hands together for the one and only Naveen Chand. Give him a round of applause. Please do take your seat while I introduce the rest of the panelists. Coming up next is another exciting NetAppian. He leads global teams across manageability, observability, security, and AI. Formerly at Google, he created Google's GovCloud and is a recognized voice in security and AI-driven infrastructure. A fun fact about him, he served as a firefighter in Colorado for over 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, for the man who's hotter than fire, Senior Director of Product Management, NetApp, the one and only Chris Johnson. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Our next panelist is the co-founder and CTO of Vault Edge. He brings deep expertise in building intelligent automation products. An ex-NetApp and HP professional, he now leads teams developing cutting-edge solutions in document AI and NLP. He is Sajeev Aravindan. A big round of applause for Sajeev. Welcome, sir. Please do take your seats. Our next panelist is, of course, from IIT Madras, an ex-NetApp employee. You heard him before. Put your hands together for Professor Rupesh Nasre. Thank you, sir. Love to have you back on stage. And moderating this session is our very own Vasanthi Ramesh. Let's give Vasanthi a big round of applause as she comes on stage to take over this session. Everyone, put your hands together for this amazing panel, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions after this one.
Hello, everyone, again. I hope you had a great time listening to all of the presentations. Just to let you know, all of the panels, I took the question sheet from I changed all your questions. Now it's going to be about Bollywood movies. It's going to be about, some of the fun stuff that he asked from the general knowledge. Anyhow, so I'm sure all of you would be able to answer those questions well, but we would like to know from you more about how you build products. How do you transform an idea to product? And this is going to be a very a session where we will try to tap into each one of your insights about your experience, about what you're currently doing, and also about the technologies which you're working with. Every product originates from an idea, a business challenge, or a research topic. First, we're going to start to see how these ideas become into products. So Naveen, the first question is for you. As a business owner and product strategist, what misconceptions do companies still hold about AI?
Thanks, Vasanthi. I think to start with, one of the challenges that I see businesses and companies think about with AI is really that AI is the product. And AI as a product is a big misconception because it's really not just about AI as a product. AI is more of an ingredient on how you go and take it to solve a customer pain point, building it better, more scalable, faster, and solving it just more efficiently overall. So I think that's the first one that I would highlight. Another misconception is really that the success of AI depends on the models. I think AI depends on models, but a core piece of it is actually the data. And making sure you have data that is accurate, doesn't have gaps, there's no bias. Because if you take data that has those problems, apply a model against it, it's just going to amplify all of those risks that exist inside there. I think the last one is really about how long it takes to take these things to production. Building prototypes is extremely quick, fast. You can go and iterate very quickly. But 80% of the time is really about taking that and deploying it inside your production environments, building back the right feedback loops, making sure you can continuously train against it, going and driving the right sort of changes towards the core data set. So there's a lot of work on the iteration piece as well that customers tend to not think about correctly when they first set these up.
Fantastic. So we now know what, at a very high level, you look into an AI product, probably looking at the data, looking at beyond AI as to what the product does, and to have the quality of an enterprise product. CJ, as a product leader, in your opinion, At what point does an idea become a viable AI-driven product?
I love this question. So for me, this really is about thinking about your product fundamentals and adding that AI twist to it. So you're looking for that tipping point. And the tipping point that we're looking for, especially in this space, is around product, performance, and production viability. So on the product side, what you're looking for there is what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And Naveen, I really liked what you were saying there along the lines of imagining what you're trying to solve rather than AI for its sake. And for the product side, you're looking for the problems that are expensive, urgent, or just really difficult to solve in the first place. When it comes to performance, you're looking for really that minimum viability for the product. The trap that I've fallen into when I've looked at AI products as I've been building these is looking for that like ultimate of accuracy and perfection. You're not shooting for that when you're looking for that tipping point for product viability. You're looking for something that's really going to kind of meet that minimum level for what you're looking for from a product point of view. But the other thing that's important to think about when you're looking at the tipping point for your product here from a performance point of view is that your technology is not your moat anymore. A lot of the technology that, in fact, a lot of people in this room are building is democratizing the expertise, which means your moat for your product is actually going to be your execution and your go-to-market. So you got to focus on those areas rather than the actual technology. And then finally, when it comes down to production viability, this is actually a debate you and I were having yesterday around the cost of what you're actually looking to deploy and build. And it's not just about cost. Will this scale to the number of customers that you're going to work with? Is this going to be secure enough to bring to your enterprise customers? But yeah, I really like the idea of thinking about what it's going to mean to productionize the product itself. Once you kind of hit those 3 Ps for your tipping point, then you have a viable product that you should really take to market.
Fantastic. I think these 3 Ps work just not for AI, but most of the products, and more specifically in today's world for AI products.
Yeah.
From a very different perspective, Mr. Rupesh, as a researcher, how do you determine whether a research concept can actually translate into a feasible product?
Yeah, so sure if this is working. Thank you. So when we start working on a research problem, there are 2 modes of operation. One is that we are allowed to think to do blue sky research, which means that we can think of our own problems which the community is interested in and so on. The other way is that the industry poses us problems which definitely has a definite use case. Not always the industry problems are going to require deep research, but sometimes it does. And therefore, both these avenues lead us to do different kinds of research, sometimes more on implementation based, sometimes more on the research side, towards coming up with new ideas to solve certain issues. And as I was mentioning earlier, some of these problems might not have a theoretical decidability, which means these are not probably theoretically feasible. But when we are dealing in an industry scale, when thousands of customers are dependent on it, we need to probably think about how feasible we need to get to so that the customers are satisfied. It's not always we want an ideal solution. Sometimes it's an approximate solution which turns out to be good. Our work does not obviously go further into the industry scale part of it. It's more at the prototype level that we develop as part of our research groups. And we hand it over to the industry partner, and then the industry partner takes it further.
So now I think we'll ask one of the founders over here, Sajeev. Could you share the genesis of Voltage and explain what business problem you are currently solving with AI?
Sure. So when we started, it was a lofty goal, like everyone, right? We wanted to build a Google for enterprise, like organize the data within an enterprise, right? As you all know, our data are in emails, SharePoint, OneDrive, Dropbox, NetApp, Filer. It's spread across. When we want to search for some data, we first need to know where the data is, right? The source of it, before we can start searching. So that was the problem we set to solve. We took a year to build the product, and then we tried to sell. And that's when we realized building was the easiest, right? Selling is what you should solve first. in a startup if you're trying to selling to enterprises, right? And that took us a year to figure out that we cannot sell this. So we had a lot of POCs going on, but you should think about it, right? A large enterprise has to put so many connectors into their data center, right? And CIO, security, there are so many things which you need to knock off before you actually get into a production. And that's when we realized that this is probably not the product we want to sell. We want to narrow it to a very specific use case which customers can relate to and doesn't touch everything in their enterprise, in their data center. So we focused on, from enterprise search, we came down to like document intelligence. How do we make sure that there is a lot of processes in enterprise where you want to extract data, understand them, review them for legal, whatever the use case. So we narrowed down and came into a document AI automation software.
Fantastic. So we got like 4 different perspectives of how an idea or what it is to think about a product from an idea or from a research. The next big thing is, does this idea or this product have a market potential? Right? That's very important even before you start building a product. And how do you see what is the market potential of this product? So I'll start again with you, Professor Rupesh. One of the big things in academia is that you need to bridge the gap between the research that you're doing and what the industry really wants. So what are some of your learnings? How do you do that in your organization, in your...
Thank you. So academia, especially IITs, are no longer teaching institutes. We have to do a lot of research, and there is a lot of push for taking to the market. And therefore, there are, for example, there is a research park just across IIT Madras campus. And then there is a lot of push for the faculty members to be part of various startups, which some of our students start, or some of the faculty members also start. So one of the first things that we are expected to do is to talk to 100 customers, right? So go around, find 100 customers, find their case studies. Most of the times what happens is that the idea that you have is not what really customers want, right? So the idea needs to evolve, you need to pivot multiple times, and thankfully you come to typically a stage after 100 customers that this is the pain point that the customer wants to, or most of the customers want to solve, and whether now does there exist a technology which should revolve around this particular point. So I think customer survey is one of the first things that we need to do.
So you work on a sample size and then you try to go and measure and see what the customer success is. CJ, when we are building products in multiple organizations, right, one of the big things that product managers need to do is to also talk about, is this product something that is really genuine for the market? So what are some of the signals that indicate to you that, you know, this AI concept or this particular product in which you're investing good amount of technology actually has got a potential or a market fit and generates the revenue that you're expecting out of it?
I love this question because this is such a fundamental problem, right? Which is the thing that I'm building going to work for my customers and be the right fit for the market? There's a couple things that I look for here. The first one that I would search for is business workflow integration. And integration is kind of a fundamental piece for what I look for, especially for AI products. Because if you have workflow integration, you're building a dependency on your product. Once you have the dependency, especially in AI, it's exceptionally difficult to break that. So you have a very sticky product. So a strong signal would be a customer coming to you and being like, hey, I integrated your AI solution with my ticket system, or I integrated what you're doing with my sales process. This is a strong signal that I'm on the right path. A weak signal would be like, hey, I used it, I chatted with your system and it gave me a cool answer. That's great. That means you built something interesting. Once you have that business workflow integration, then you're onto something really special. The other piece that I would really look for, and this one's kind of a little bit counterintuitive, but a really strong signal would be whether or not a customer is going to value the reliability of your product over asking you for more features. Now, as a startup, you're looking for those more features. You're looking for that excitement to build that emotional connection with your customer. But when that customer comes to you and says, hey, I'm going to penalize you if your product is offline or it gives me an error. This means you're onto something very, very special. This used to really frustrate me when I was negotiating large cloud contracts at Google, where my customers would come and be like, hey, I need this penalty if you're offline for this number of minutes or whatever. And as a vendor, that's a frustrating situation to be in. What that actually tells you is they value your service extremely highly. So that is a very strong signal that you're onto something special as well. So look for those. And a weak signal would be, again, something along the lines of, I need feature XYZ, or can you train your data on my data set? These are important, but that's a weak signal of whether or not you've got a product market fit. So I think those are probably the two big areas that I would focus on as strong signals, is like, I've got something special here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Naveen, let's deep dive a little bit into NetApp, right? Could you just share some examples from NetApp as to how our technology and innovations that we are doing today are addressing some of the AI challenges, and what sort of signals are we looking for? Like, what signals actually led us to these advanced technology, the products that we are building?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, AI is a data problem. And at NetApp, we spend a lot of time with our customers trying to understand where their challenges exist in their end-to-end pipelines and where we need to drive innovation and change. People have great models, they've got great GPUs. Making sure that the data is there and available for them at the speed and frequency that they need was one of the areas that we needed to invest in. So we reimagined our architecture. We delivered something that decoupled the compute from the storage, enabling customers to scale those independently, thereby ensuring that their GPUs always had as much data as required to meet their throughput demands. In addition, one of the other challenges that customers face is really this notion of data silos. Their data is fragmented, spread across their entire estate. Being able to go and find it, making sure the right permissions, the right security parameters are included as well, is one of the reasons that we delivered the metadata engine that allows you to go get this holistic view of the data that sits inside your estate and go and simplify it, bring it to the processing power, and bring compute down to the storage nodes as well to bring all of that together in an end-to-end solution. So this is what we've launched recently with AFX, and it enables customers to go and solve these holistically.
Fantastic. I think one of the biggest signals that at least I see when we have our whole disaggregated architecture coming out is understanding the time it takes actually to build these pipelines. I'm sure if you ask most of the founders over here, they'll talk about the complexities in getting all of their infrastructure straight to get their products built and to make sure that they're using the data in the efficient way. I think one of the core problems that NetApp is trying to solve by trying to get everything done at a storage level. Sajeev, this is more a very practical question because you've gone through this and you've built your own company. You spoke about you narrowed down to one particular use case and then you were focusing on that. How did you realize that this niche area or this particular use case has got the best market potential compared to the bigger problem that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult question you encounter when you start on your own. The only way to do that is to get in bed early with at least one prospect. Make sure whatever you're building is solving the problem, at least for them. You probably cannot say because it solves for them, it's going to solve for 100 other customers, but at least make sure that particular customer is completely satisfied with what you're building. Work closely with, if you can work with multiple customers, if you have the bandwidth, you can, but at least work with one customer. In our case, we had one customer, a large enterprise, was willing to spend time, which basically means that they had that problem to be solved, right? They were ready to put the money, they were ready to put the time. They were able to give us the data to train the model. That's the most important thing you normally don't get, right? These are personal customer data. So we trained the model primarily using their data, able to show the output from that. And they were quite happy with the results. And so it was almost custom built for them first. And then we took it to other customers. And then we realized that we built a model, but we did not build a use case around it because When other customers, they don't care about the model, right? We thought it's a big deal because to build a model which works at 90% accuracy was a big deal for us. But other customers did not care. And until we figured out their use case and in a language they understand, right? Then only then we could repeat it. So first thing, work closely with the customer, with the prospect. Second thing, get out of that particular problem and see how you can address use cases which other customers also care about, right? I think once you do that, you should be able to generalize to tens or hundreds of customers.
Fantastic. I think this also relates to what Naveen started by saying, that it's beyond AI, right? Your model is precise, is not what the customer really is interested in.
Right.
They're more interested in how you're going to solve their use case. Maybe a follow-up question for you on this particular thing, right? I'm sure if I take a poll among all the startup founders over here, many of them will be thinking about this question, or maybe I can even ask a raise of hands. How many of you would be thinking about, should we get into a niche domain, or should we actually make a more generalized product that works across multiple domains? I know how many startup founders have that thought process in your mind, right? So, Sajeev, what in your experience you think would be a guidance for somebody to say, okay, I want to just hone in on this one vertical and then build a product, versus I'll just build a product and then go customer by customer and adapt my product to it?
So all success stories I've seen so far, they're all started with a niche. And once they established the niche, they were able to build around it, right? Once you get into 100 enterprises, now you know the enterprises have 100 other problems. Then you can build more features around it. But if you are solving something which is not unique, right? It's not, anybody can solve it, right? You're doing a lot of things, and there are 10 other startups will do parts of it. Then you can't even sell to one customer, right? The customer is looking for what is that you're offering which others don't give me, right? So you have to do one that so good that it's easy to sell that one, because you're like selling to enterprise is like a Trojan horse. Once you sell, you can sell around it. So focus on one, get it right, get 10 customers, 20 customers to buy. Now those 10 to 20 customers are going to give you the next set of products for you. Build it around.
Fantastic. So I think once we have an idea that we are taking to product, we understand the market potential that we're going to do. The next big thing is creating the experience. How do we ensure this product is giving the right customer experience? And this question is to you, CJ. A lot of these products, especially in Gen AI, involve very intricate deployments, configurations, access controls. How do you as a product manager ensure that there is a very seamless and intuitive customer experience that is beyond all of the technological complexities that are there?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it goes back to kind of the very first part that we talked about, which is optimizing for that user experience. That's really what you have to shoot for here, because it's not about model output. What you really need to do is start thinking about frictionless, secure, well-integrated solutions that work for your customers at scale, right? And what that means for us a lot of times is treating infrastructure and deployment as infrastructure, right? So in other words, when you're thinking about your AI solution, don't put it on the customer to imagine how their cloud deployment is going to go or how their infrastructure needs to be managed. You need to abstract that away from them and make it as simple as possible to adopt your cool AI solution, right? So it's about how this thing works. The other thing that I would recommend is think about business parameters instead of technical parameters when you're asking customers to set your environment up. A lot of times I've seen, and I've made this mistake myself with an ML solution I was working on a long time ago, where I asked the customer for model confidence percentage, right? Something that all of us look at when we're building these solutions. What I should have been asking for instead was, what's your risk tolerance? Low, medium, or high, right? That makes sense for a business user. Asking for the model confidence, they don't know how I built my model, right? So what this means is transforming the way you're thinking about interfacing with your customer for the business outcomes rather than the technical inputs and outputs. And then the other we kind of talked about a little bit was the security controls. Access controls are not something that you can bolt on after you're done with your product at the end. We've learned this the hard way a few times. Security is not something you can bolt on at the very end. You have to build it in from the very beginning. I've seen very large secure AI projects fail because we failed to put in security controls at the beginning. You just can't do that late in the project. So think about that very early on. And this is really, really important in the AI space because a lot of the data that you're protecting at the beginning, to Naveen's point, transforms as it moves through our pipelines. Meaning it's really difficult to protect it when our traditional security controls and parameters understand the thing that started at the beginning, but once it's transformed, how do we know that that's the thing that we need to protect at the very end? Which means our access controls need to understand that transformation and the data pipeline end to end. So I really think about those a lot when we're imagining how we're going to take this idea to an actually productionized product and allow customers to adopt it.
Fantastic. I think a little bit very contrastingly, right? Professor Rupesh, this is a question for you because you said you work a lot on research topics, on POCs, and customer experience might not be something that you're considering. But I liked in your conversation, the one thing that I really enjoyed was when you spoke about how do you benchmark the performance, right? Especially for Gen AI and agents and stuff. What do you expect from them? Do you expect them to be better than humans, or do you expect them to perform just like humans? So how do you talk about experience or performance when you are thinking about your product?
Yeah, so when we started with this data science part, right? So our goal was that we should be able to match human skill, right? Maybe that is 90% or maybe 92%, whatever it is. And then we were probably somewhere around 60% at that time. And when neural networks, etc., started coming up, the accuracy improved and we started coming closer to this human aspect. In some of the models, we have actually seen that it goes beyond the average human, that whatever is the accuracy that we are interested in. So an AI agent is able to sometimes outperform a human. Now, whether this is a little controversial because your accuracy is actually decided by what data you have. And the data is curated using humans, right? So how can it go beyond that? So there are technicalities which I'll not get into. But what I'm trying to say is that we have exceeded the human capacity in terms of that. And while so far, whatever we have been focusing on, that the data must be very, very accurate, while that is very true and that has been helping us to build a better and better models. Now the agents are helping us to build the data, right? So that is the next stage we have to reach so that we are able to solve this problem with very high accuracy. That high is still a question mark because what do you compare it against? And I mean, you can't say that this is 100% accurate because we don't have the truth, which was originally the humans, and now we have every agents are really competing against each other, and whether one agent's truth is going to be compared with the other agent's truth. Those are the things we are soon going to get into. And therefore, this accuracy beyond humans is something which we will have to worry about, which at least I don't have an answer for.
Actually raised a lot of curiosity for me. How do you actually think about agents when you're thinking you're going to replace humans? Humans come with all the flaws that we have. Are we looking for a human-like behavior, or are we just looking for a robotic behavior that we're looking into? So, Sajeev, this question is for you, right? Where in your journey as a startup founder did you really start focusing upon customer experience? And you said that, okay, now I did this experimentation, I built this model, great. When did it hit upon you that this customer experience is important? And if you go back, what is it that you would have done differently?
Yeah, that's a tough question. We did not consciously focus on customer experience for a long time, and it costed us a lot. We started losing customers. That's when we decided to focus on customer experience. And customers don't tell you they are not happy. They suddenly leave one day. And there is no warning unless you are closely tracking them. So enterprise customers, till the day they leave, they say, okay, no problem. So you need someone, we do have these customer success managers whose job is to talk to them on a weekly basis, figure out the warnings, and relay to the product team management to take action. If you don't do that, till the last day, you have no warning almost. Everything is fine, and suddenly they say we are going with another customer, and the contract ends, we are not renewing. So when that started happening, that's when we decided that we need to figure out, we need a person who is responsible to do this. And that's how we started. And the reasons they leave is that they might be telling you this particular thing is not working well, right? You think it's just, they're saying it's not a big concern, right? Other customers are not telling me, it's just this customer. So you don't take it seriously. But actually, it is a serious problem for them. They are worried about it. They're not showing it that if you don't fix it, I will leave. But the moment you say they're not doing it for a month, 2 months, they're looking for an alternative. They already started talking to somebody. And unless you have someone who constantly in touch with the customer, trying to figure out, like, is that a big problem, right? What's the concern the customer has? Those questions, if you're not asking them on a month-on-month basis, you would skip. You would not. I'm talking about customers who are paying 25K, 50K per month, right? Like 250K, 500K in ACV in a year. So you have to constantly talk to them. You have somebody, right? May not be the founders, but there should be a person responsible who talks to the customer, engage with them, understand the real concerns, and bring it back to the team. And we started doing it, unfortunately, after we started losing customers. But if I am starting now for enterprise with higher ICVs, you will start day one with a customer success manager.
Fantastic. I think the important takeaway over here is there is a time when you need to start taking off your technology and your founder hat and start thinking about how your customer really needs the product and have that continuous engagement. Naveen, this question is to you. This is something that we debate all the time at work. I thought we'll bring it up out in the audience too. Normally, experience is very, very subjective. You have so many customers who come up with different requirements as to how the experience should be. And I think I remember reading a book with Steve Jobs' biography where he said, the customer does not know what they want, and we need to actually create that experience. How do you balance this out? What is your views on building a customer experience that works for everyone, and what are some of the ways in which you manage these expectations?
So I think when we look at customer experience, the main thing is really understanding the segmentation on which set of customers you're going after to make sure that you can deliver an experience that delights them, solves the core key pain points that they have. And when we talk about kind of customer experience on the different ways we go prioritize which experiences we go drive forward on, it's really about finding that sweet spot in product market fit. The complexity is when you start thinking about how AI can come in there. It helps us drive more personalization by understanding context, both from what users are able to go and perform, the operations that are there, and how you can tie these together to deliver a more delightful experience end to end.
Fantastic. I think we have an idea right now about what is it with respect to expectations, whether it's a research product, whether it is a founder talking about their journey into what they went into customer experience, from CJ about how he sees what the product customer experience should be, and from Naveen about how do you look into segmentation. Lot of projects are not always smooth. There are ups and downs. And I think the toughest part is in research, Professor Rupesh, because at least in products, we know what is the specific outcome we want and whether we succeeded or failed. Research is like a greenfield one. How do you navigate through this? And what are some of your experiences, some of the aha moments where you thought that, you know what, this is really a research groundbreaking thing?
Yeah, it gets into little personal experience. Yeah, so definitely research has its own uncertainties, and dealing with uncertainties is something that not all of us are trained for, or we don't grow up with uncertainties. Most of the things are decided by maybe our parents initially, then maybe our spouse, kids, whatever. But yeah, when it comes to more technical research, there are different ways in which we need to specifically think about different problems, and a lot of it needs to be derived from what other people in the community have looked at. So we need to understand that why they have tackled the problem in this particular manner, or why they have tackled this particular problem and not the other one, etc. We need to talk to people, a lot of conferences, we learn from each other, we have collaboration from where we learn, and we also develop our own ideas. A larger piece of work needs to be divided and conquered to ensure that the risk that we take in solving a problem gets minimized to solving a sub-goal, so that we are able to pivot to a different direction in case required. At the same time, I will say that academic research still has a little bit of leeway, because at max what will happen, the PhD, instead of taking 5 years, it will take 6 years. But when it comes to production, I think it's millions of money that might be spent in that. So it is still okay.
Thank you. I'm sure there's a lot of heartbreak too, because after putting such a hard time into this research, not seeing the outcome. CJ, this question is for you. You have worked a lot with the government on some of the security and other stuff. What were some of the moments where you felt like you're just, out there not knowing how to solve this? Because these are bigger problems, not just with the technology, but with policies and with others. Could you share some of your experiences? Because I'm sure a lot of our founders over here are in the state where sometimes they don't know how to proceed, right? And they sometimes think about a lot of these policies and compliances. Can you share some of your insights?
Yeah. I spent a lot of time kind of navigating that very interesting world of the cross-section of policies, regulations, and technology. And what I can tell you is it's not as scary as you might think, right? Because when it comes down to it, the regulations and our government interfaces oftentimes are there to actually help us be successful, make sure that we stay in line. A lot of them are actually out there to help you. So what I would say is it's not as hard to navigate that space as you might think. Now, that being said, one of the things that always scares me is, especially in startups when you're moving quickly, there's a temptation to move fast, to take chances. What that oftentimes leads to is an erosion of privacy, governance, and security. Don't drop those things, right? And that's when you're going to get into trouble. So when you bring those in, when you bring in those fundamentals, the gap between you, your startup, your technology that you're building, and those policies and regulations is actually far closer than you might think. So focusing on the fundamentals means that you're going to get those good outcomes, and you're not going to have a difficult time navigating that. Now, that being said, of course it's tricky, of course it's challenging, but also one of the things that I remember from my very early days at Google, I joined, and they're like, hey, you're going to work on this FedRAMP thing. I'm like, never heard of it, that sounds great. So I got down, I sat down, and there was a program that had been running for about 1.5 years, and I joined. And the first thing I did is I looked at this giant document that our lovely government regulators gave us, and I read the whole thing end to end. And instantly, I was the expert. It wasn't that hard to do. It took me a couple hours to get it done. And fortunately, now we've got all these great LLM tools that you can go ask it to tell you what the actual answer is. But the truth is, take a little bit of extra time and just read the policy, read the law, try to understand it as best you can. And what you don't actually understand, go ask your favorite LLM for some extra tips on it. It's going to really help you navigate that space. Just take the time to understand it. I can't tell you the number of times I worked with even my policy regulators, my government policy regulators, that hadn't read the darn thing that they were actually enforcing. Which means if you show up and you actually understand it, you know what you're up against, and you've covered your fundamentals, you're going to be set up for success in a really, really huge way. And honestly, that led to most of the success that I had at Google in terms of opening entirely new markets and launching products that generated hundreds of millions of dollars. Which was, and this is actually the part that's probably most exciting for me in this space, is when you navigate it well, you're opening entire markets that other companies don't have access to because they didn't take the time to really think about compliance, think about the intersection of regulations and technology, and solve that problem. It's easier than you think, it's worth the time, and it's going to mean you have access to markets that your competitors don't have access to.
Fantastic. I think it has given confidence to a lot of people who are really worried about the compliance part of it. Naveen, this question is for you. I think there's a number floating around everywhere that almost like around 85% or 90% of all Gen AI projects tend to fail, right? In your experience, you have launched like very big products, and you have been like for Google IAM, which has impacted billions of people, right? How do you see this AI, actually Gen AI products hitting the ground in the next few years? What's your view about it?
So I think over the next several years, we're going to see a massive change. And that change is going to come from multiple different places. We saw a lot of great presentations today talking about agentic AI and how customers are going to be going and managing, seeing autonomous decisions coming into place. And with all of this promise, there's also, they say, great responsibility that comes with it as well. We're going to need to go and see how we bring in the right set of controls all the way from security, explainability, building that level of trust and change. A lot of this is still fairly nascent. You see people starting to experiment with some of these capabilities in lab environments, in prototype phases. But I think over the next several years, you're going to see a drastic change in how these actually get brought into production environments, how it's actually changing the way people interact with solutions and spaces. And we talked about having an autonomous piece of code that's able to go perform operations 24/7 on your behalf. And there's going to be a lot of work around making sure there's the right balances, checks, and governance that kind of comes in place as well. So we'll see all of those changes over the next couple of years.
Fantastic. Looks futuristic and very optimistic. And Sajeev, this question is for you, right? Again, when you were building your startup, right, and when you're working through it, obviously there would have been areas where you are not an expert of it, right? And how did you balance it out? And what would you give as an advice, especially if you're using Gen AI today? There are a lot of things that you might know and things which you need to partner with. What are some of your principles and guidelines? And I'm sure a lot of founders over here would also like to know about it.
So the question is about when you are not the expert, where do you take help?
Exactly.
Right. So that's a difficult problem all of us startups have, because we cannot afford everybody we want, right? We have to work with the small team we have access to. That basically means there are a lot of things we cannot do. That limits what we can do and what we cannot. So what we can do is we look at the team in front of us and see what we can build. And anything outside of that capability, there are few things we have done in the past. When we were engaged with NetApp Accelerator, we had worked with NetApp ATG for certain things like a knowledge graph we wanted to build, and we took help from ATG in NetApp. And other than that, we also have interns coming from IITs. We do interns from IITs every year, and they have we particularly take people with some research interest, and we give the hard problems to them, which we cannot solve. And they'll be there for 2 to 3 months. We try to get it solved by them. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But we do that on a year-on-year basis. We get the few top IIT students, final year students, and get them to solve real hard problems which we face. Those are the two which work for us. The third thing is not to do those, right? If there is a problem which we cannot solve, we just don't even take it, right? That's what happens, because you have certain people, certain capabilities, certain amount of money you can use to get somebody new. And there are no consultants available to do hard problems. Consultants are there to do easy problems. Anything hard, you need to build it yourself, or look for any open source which you can possibly make changes. So yeah, interns and collaborations with accelerators like NetApp.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This is going to be the last round, and these are going to be questions that are something that I would like to ask each one of you. This is more personal to me. I'll start with Professor Rupesh. What is the most interesting technology that you're working on today that you could let all of us know about? One big thing that is undercover.
If I'm allowed to answer this in a different way, I'll say that the biggest thing that I'm currently working on is my students. That's the best technology we could have created ever. And I'm happy to be part of this journey and helping in shaping up their future, which of course they are very capable, but that we are permitted to touch their lives in different way. I think that is the best technology that IITs are creating.
I don't think there's a better apt answer. We did see one of the founders acknowledging the good work that you do, and I'm sure a lot of here are coming from the premier institutes in India, and we are very grateful to the good work that the professors in these universities do. Sajeev, this question is for you. What motivated you throughout your startup journey? I'm sure many of them over here would have one day thought, why am I doing this? And I'm sure the Philo founder was also saying that it was a suicidal attempt, but we decided to go ahead with it. So what kept you motivated?
It's a difficult question. So there are different stages of your startup, different things will motivate. Getting the first customer is proving that you could do it, right? Because it's a big validation. Some customer is ready to pay for whatever you built and is going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the biggest motivation. Once you achieve that, getting the next 10 customers, right? Repeating that, proving that this problem is also there for others. I didn't build a particular solution for one customer. It is a product which can be used by 10 other customers, right? That's your second journey, and it motivates you. Once you reach there, it's about team. How do you build the team? How do you keep the people happy? How do you grow them? How do you build the next set of products? So I think the motivation is different in different stages of your startup. You just have to know which stage you are, and you should not be motivated by the third stage when you are in the first stage.
So there are different stages of motivation, and every time you cross one, you have a next barrier to cross. Fantastic. CJ, this question for you. I normally, when I interact with you, you're excited by many things, right? So technology, I mean. So what excites you the most when you're building AI products, or at least about building AI products? What is the most exciting thing for you when you're building such a product?
That's a really interesting question. And as you know, I'm an excitable person. I'm always excited about things. I have to tell you, I'm having the most fun building technology in my career than I've had in 20 years. You know, I did my first startup when I was 16 with another person who went to Google, and that was really, really fun, right? It was exciting. It was new. We were moving fast. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. I hopefully have like one more clue, not many more clues than I do now. But I think what's exciting me most is the speed with which I can go from concept to product. And this is turning into just like so much fun, whether it be the projects we're working for agentification at work or projects that I'm doing at home, helping my son build, computer vision for some of the sports stuff he does. It's extremely exciting to be able to think of something, prototype it, put it together, get it into production in a matter of days or weeks for something that would have taken me months or years before. This is so much fun. Especially as somebody who lives and breathes product, which is all about creation and thinking of that idea, to be able to see it real so quickly is probably what excites me most right now. I'm just loving it.
Thank you so much for that. Naveen, this question is for you. Big products, large companies, they have the funding, they have the ability to do things and deploy it for larger set of people. And you have worked in large companies and you have built big products too. If you were to address to our founders today, and if they were to think about building products for billions of people, what are those one or two things that you would tell them that they need to keep in the back of their mind?
So, especially when it comes to AI and some of the rest of these pieces, if you think about how you're going to go build and scale these solutions out, there's a few foundational principles that'd be good to consider early on. As you start going and building solutions, I think about security, the ability for you to have things like explainability, and the ability for you to go and scale at efficient cogs as things that are critical. AI is an interesting hot space. We also need to realize when it should be used and when it shouldn't be used. There are some scenarios, some use cases in which it makes sense for you to go and deliver on some of those capabilities and use it to go drive the right level of efficiency, user experience, things that just weren't possible before. But there's other areas that you want to augment those experiences to make sure that you can go and deliver that same value using things that aren't necessarily generated by AI. So I would say as you think about scaling these solutions, it's about building out your platforms in a way that will allow you to continuously add on, grow with those same foundational principles in place.
Thank you. I think today, a lot of the questions, some were directed on AI and some were just generic questions. But I think every answer today applies equally to the role of AI when you're building in a product. I'd like to thank all of the panelists over here. But before we go, I have a Bollywood question for you too. If you were to capture the current Gen AI stuff in any Bollywood name, the evolution that's happening, what would it be? Goodie bags for each one of you too. If you could just think about a movie name that encapsulates this whole journey that we are going through with Gen AI. I gave a clue. A very transformative movie, transformative journey that we are going through. Okay, from the audience. Yes, please. Pardon me, I couldn't hear the gentleman there. Rajnikant's movie Robo, very nice. Anybody else?
You hear?
Okay, Robo, Robo 1, Robo 2, iRobo.
Can you hear me? Here.
Yes,
Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious. Okay, someone is going with the space at which Gen AI is moving. That's a good name too. Thank you very much. I think we should increase the Bollywood or the movie knowledge for all of our panelists. Let's see if we can send them something like an IDVM database information data source that they can work on. Thank you, everyone. And my special thanks to all the panelists.